I've been thinking about this for like 2 weeks, and I've been waiting for this specific episode to ask.
Wow.
For no good reason.
Okay.
But if you had to replace the actor of one MCU villain with Jerry Seinfeld, who would it be?
What the hell?
What is the feature-length podcast? Anyone?
The feature-length podcast is a show where 3 idiots talk about film and entertainment.
Good answer.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, are you talking to us?
Yeah. I'm talking to the voices in my head.
Like, I truly don't know. It felt like a fever dream. I swear to God, I could not
It sounds so
make this shit up.
stupid hearing that.
If you're listening to this is a podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies and TV for a feature length of time.
Brokeback Mountain is a 2005 film by acclaimed director Ang Lee. Fresh off the success of the visionary masterpiece, Hulk 2003, Lee delivered us one of the best romance dramas ever to be released. The movie is about 2 sheep-herding cowboys, Jack Twist and Ennis Delmar, who take a job together moving cattle across the untamed wilderness, and over the course of weeks, develop a romance with one another on the fateful slopes of Brokeback Mountain. When the job is finished, they drift apart and go on with their lives, getting married and having children throughout the passing years, shown through time jumps. Still, Jack and Ennis continue to yearn for what they once had, and they go on to arrange trips to reconnect behind their families' backs. At the risk of the domestic lives they've built, they continually try to get back to where they once were, but eventually come to realize it may never work between their seemingly predetermined lives. Even so, the flame never ceases to flicker. Brokeback Mountain got us good, don't it?
Call Me By Your Name is a movie that came out in 2017, directed by Luca, Guadagnino? Guadagnino?
Close enough.
And starring Timothée Chalamet and alleged cannibal Armie Hammer. It takes place in one fateful summer in 1983, where Timothée Chalamet discovers fruit and homosexuality, and Armie Hammer discovers statues and the body of a young boy. And it's set
More
in a
like
picture.
Good lord, Carol. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna talk about it.
We're gonna
but
talk about it. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna talk
I
about
can't
it.
just say it's a lovely romance because it's a little
Yeah.
problematic. But
Just
it
a
takes
bit.
place all in a very picturesque little Italian town backdrop. So it's lovely to watch. But that's Call Me By Your Name.
Welcome back, everyone, to the feature-length podcast, episode 51. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we did
less
it.
exciting than episode 50. I don't think it requires a woo.
But it's like a bigger event than episode 50, kind of.
We've
Well,
passed
every
episode 50.
episode going forward will, I guess, be a bigger event. Do we have to woo every time?
I think
No, but
so.
I mean, not just because the number's bigger, because we have 5 guests. Or sorry, we have 2 guests, but we have 5 hosts.
Absolutely.
Which has never been done before.
Yeah, so-
I just spoiled it.
Yeah,
That's
Just-
okay.
I'll take
That's
this
okay.
out.
You know what? Fuck it.
Just start over.
We're going
Just
off
start
the cuff.
over.
Nah. This is all staying in. I don't give a shit. I am Marco, usual voice on the podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Dan
Hello.
and Carol.
Hello.
And this episode, as Dan mentioned, we have 2 special guests. 2 special guests that have both been on the podcast before and who also have very similar names, so it won't be that hard to remember. But Madison
Hello.
and Maddie.
Hiya.
Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us on this very special episode of the podcast, which the working title for is Call Me By Your Brokeback Mountain. Because we are discussing today 2 very big movies in a classic double feature episode of the podcast. Yeah, Call Me By Your Name and Brokeback Mountain. So for anyone who is unaware, the standard sort of format we're going to do like we do normally for double feature episodes. Obviously, we're going to talk about each movie individually with a separate discussion on each. But we are also going to go around the panel of us guests and discuss sort of our first time watching the movie, what our history with the movies are, and then as well give personalized recommendations. So for Madison and Maddie, instead of just giving like a flat recommend or not recommend, because those are kind of boring and played out, we try to think about like, I don't know, who would get the most out of the movies or who might the movies be bad for, any warnings we might want to give, whatever. And we just keep that pretty brief, and then we'll get into like a more in-depth discussion on the movies. So yeah, without further ado, has anyone here not seen either of these movies before? That would be a good place to start.
I've actually never seen Call Me by Your Name.
Okay.
Me too.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
But you guys had both seen Brokeback before.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I had no idea you guys hadn't seen it.
So Maddie had seen Call Me by Your
Oh,
Name,
really?
but
I
not
thought I
Brokeback.
mentioned-
105 times.
Okay. Carol, have you seen both before?
Yes, but I only saw Brokeback Mountain once as like a child at an all-nighter sleepover. I know, it was really bizarre. I like have a very vivid memory of watching it in a friend's basement in like the 5th grade. Very weird.
You know how it is. You're at a sleepover, someone brings out Brokeback Mountain. What are you
Yeah.
going to do? I mean, you got to watch it.
All nice.
Yeah, the classic.
I mean,
yes, I have seen
it
it
wasn't
before.
a sleepover, but for me, it wasn't a sleepover. But I watched it at Marco's house the first time.
Yeah. I mean,
That's where I watched.
we'll talk about that. I mean, yeah, good times. Okay, I guess if we're going to go somewhat chronological, let's start with Brokeback first, do all our general thoughts, then recommends, then Call Me by Your Name, general thoughts, recommends, and then we'll just get into in-depth discussions.
Okay.
Would you like to start
Guess
since
first?
you had never seen Brokeback Mountain first, Madison?
Sure, so am I recommending it?
Well, yeah, just what were your initial thoughts on it, and then who would you recommend it to or not recommend it to?
Okay, well, I had, like, I would say a stigma about it because I feel like it was always the movie that in, like, grade school and high school the boys would make fun of because it was like, oh, 2 gay people, wow, this like, you're gay. Like, it was the peak of humor to those homophobic idiots. But
Yeah.
so I always thought it was like just not a good movie. Like, objectively, I just thought it was probably a dumb movie. And it was actually really good. Like, it was, I really enjoyed it. And like the love story, I mean, it was obviously problematic in various ways, but I think it was, yeah, a better film than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
Who would I recommend it to? I mean, I would recommend it to anyone, I think. Like, I think the grandpas of the world need to see it and just get very uncomfortable and accept that that's a reality for a lot of people. So, because I know that, like, if I put that movie in front of, I'm not going to say it. Okay, cut this out. Can someone go first?
God, we've already
Okay.
Let's talk about our grandparents
Yeah.
watching gay sex.
Like, I know my grandpa would have a heart attack. But
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
yeah, like, this is a very problematic episode because I don't want to be like, only the gays should watch this.
Well, no, yeah. Okay, I guess it's probably easier
Maybe
to
it's
say,
hard
like,
to, like-
is there anyone you wouldn't recommend Brokeback?
Sure, yeah. You can do that too.
Because, like, if it's you would recommend it to most people, then if there's anyone you wouldn't recommend it to, but if you don't have one, you can just say everyone. That's fine. We're not gonna force you to.
I'm struggling with just the, the content of the movies.
Mhm.
I don't want to say anything that's going to be received poorly.
Listen, we're in a safe space. We can just edit it out. Don't
I know
worry.
it's Pride Month of all time.
We've said so much dumb shit on here. It doesn't matter.
Literally.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
People
Who-
will
so-
only comment about how many times we've said the word like. They won't.
Yeah.
Okay.
They won't
Yeah.
call out anything
Yeah.
else. It's fine.
Or that Shrek 4 is a good movie.
Yeah,
Those
which
are
is
the-
more problematic than anything we've ever
Yeah,
seen.
absolutely. I absolutely
Joe.
agree.
Okay, so if I had to recommend this movie to anyone, I would say everyone should see this movie because I think that, yeah, there's like a bad rep about it of just being like a shitty movie, to be honest. And it's actually like has a great storyline and I really enjoyed it. The people I wouldn't recommend it to is the grandpas of the world. I feel like it would be a bit jarring if they haven't
Yeah.
already seen it.
Okay, Maddie?
Oh, yeah, okay. General thoughts. I really like Brokeback Mountain. Thought it was a very delicate film. It's very sparse. I like that it was very niche in a way. It wasn't like a big story about gay love. It was like pretty much a love story between these two characters. And I think that in a way makes it more universal than trying to say something about being queer. But yeah, I think if you love like a forbidden love story and you like to have your heart ripped out and you like a little tragedy, this would be a great film to watch. If you want to sob at the end, this is the film for you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, so yeah, Madison had never seen it before. Maddie, when was the first time you had watched it prior to this, if you recall?
I think I watched it in high school the first time. Honestly, I didn't remember a lot of it then. I remember when it came out, I remember the outcry of how it should have won Best Picture over Crash.
Yeah.
And then
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
I
I
remember
remember
that
in
too.
high school I saw Crash and I went, I hate this movie. How did this win? And that's when I was like, I should watch Brokeback Mountain. And I was like, this is clearly the better movie.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to go next?
Okay, I'll go next. I saw this movie probably like 6 or 7 years ago now at Marco's house, like I previously said,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I was just there one day and it's like, you know what? This is an amazing movie. Let's just watch it. And it was an amazing movie, and I liked it a lot. Watched it again for this, and I've seen it twice now. Probably should have seen it more. But it's great, especially because, I mean, not to be too repetitive, so I'll just say, for all the reasons that have been said so far, plus I like this like Old West setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the Old West is the 60s, but it's Wyoming, so it's like subtract
older.
50 years from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
As we've discussed, the South is not a real place. It is a fictional Disneyland,
Yes.
which doesn't exist in real time. But I love that. It reminded me a lot of like Red Dead Redemption. And also I love the music, and I was like, wow, this is really good music. And then just this morning I was looking it up, and I guess the reason I loved it so much is it's the composer that did the Last of Us games music,
Oh, really?
who is also doing the music for the Last of Us HBO series, which is getting me pretty hype, honestly.
Nice.
That show is looking better and better by the minute. Yeah, everything that's been said so far, it's a extremely solid romance. And like Maddie said, it's not just like, it's not too generic romance. It's like it really hones in on this one particular couple that you grow to care a lot about, these two characters. And recommends. I would recommend it. I'll say the only people I won't recommend it to, just because there is like a couple graphic scenes and like a little bit of nudity. I guess children probably wouldn't like this too much.
Yeah, that's true.
Fair.
So
But-
you would say
I watched
like,
it in the
other than
5th grade. It was fun.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, but that was a choice.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I think I'll go like the Midnight Mass route of like, not everyone will want to see this, but it's something that I think everyone like should
Yeah.
see for its message.
Agreed. I will just piggyback off that because you brought up us watching it at my house. So I'll go
Okay.
next. So that was not the first time I had seen this movie. The first time I had seen it, and to go towards kind of what Madison was saying about, I guess, like the meme of this movie in pop culture.
Just when we were like younger,
Yeah.
I would say, like, I always had that like impression that it was just the movie that dudes at our age would make fun of.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the gay cowboy movie, quote
Yeah.
unquote, is like what this always was, right? But anyway, I was with a friend of ours, Tatiana. We were at a bookstore, and there was some like famous book at the time that had just come out, and there was like two cowboys on the front, and it kind of looked like the like poster for Brokeback Mountain. And so I don't know what the book was, don't ask me. And I was joking with her. I was like, haha, Brokeback Mountain. And then for some reason, like that night, we were like, hey, maybe let's just watch Brokeback Mountain as like a joke. Because again, like neither of us really realized that we would enjoy it. So it was like the meme of it. And then I watched it and I was like, holy shit, I love this movie. This movie's great. Yeah, and then pretty shortly after that, is when I showed it to you, Dan. But I haven't seen it since then. So this rewatch is my third ever watch. And the last ones were like 5 years ago. But yeah, I also really enjoyed it again. It is funny. In terms of all the double feature episodes we've done, this one reminds me the most of our original double feature, where we did Booksmart and
Oh, Superbad.
Superbad. Because I remember like watching those movies and being like, holy shit, these actually are really similar. And so much, especially about the beginning of Brokeback, I was like, oh, this is really similar. This kind of like slow build. We're not talking about anything, just in this landscape area. So yeah, I'm glad we're doing these movies together. But I really vibed with it. I love the pace of it. I think it's just, yeah, really beautiful love story. And I do have some thoughts about the fact that I think it will definitely, over time, probably age better than Call Me By Your Name, because of what we've talked about in terms of like how it is more of not like trying to say something about gay people. It's just like a love story, which I think I 100% agree with. And in terms of recommendations, yeah, I think this is a general recommend for me across the board. I can't imagine anyone, unless you're like in the deep south and an asshole, like disliking this movie. Probably even just like older people in my life I know have seen this movie and like it, and so I feel like most people can probably get on board with it, but it depends, you know. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're homophobic, probably
Stop listening.
probably don't watch these movies and also go fuck yourself. But that's the gist of what I would say about this.
My turn. Yeah, as I mentioned, I saw this in the 5th grade. I will say, because of the graphic sex scenes, I was pretty uncomfortable in the 5th grade, I will not lie. So right off the bat, do not recommend it to 5th graders or younger.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is that the cutoff?
Yeah, no, it's in grade
Would you say?
6, you're fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie upon this watch, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't really have any real memories or thoughts of my opinion after my first watch, especially since it was at an all-nighter, so I was just full delirious. I don't even know why we watched it, but I don't remember thinking negative things about it, just that I was like, this is graphic sex and I'm too young for this. But upon this watch, I really enjoyed it. I forgot basically everything, as I do. Story of my life. I was very surprised at the cast. Surprised and delighted at the cast. And everyone's performances are really great. And I appreciated that it did cover this relationship over a larger expanse of time, because I didn't remember that part of it. For some reason, I thought it was just the relationship on the mountain. Probably because of the title, so it was nice to have it go further than that. But in terms of recommends, I will say also similarly to everyone else, probably recommend it to everyone, but maybe if you are like a gay man or gay person, the ending could be a little traumatic, so that's
fair.
Just something to keep in mind, perhaps, if you're really sensitive to that kind of stuff. I didn't even say what. Spoiler alert. But yeah, a gay man is beaten to death. So if that is something you don't think you want to watch or hear about, maybe skip it or like stop it halfway. I don't know. But yeah, that's probably my only caveat to the recommend to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I did forget. Now,
yeah, me too. I was just gonna, because they talk about it. Something like that is talked about like midway through the movie as well, right?
Yeah.
When he's talking about what happened to like his neighbors or whatever. And then it happens at the end. So it's kind of like, I remember just like sitting in silence and being like so upset and like sick to my stomach midway through and then at the end. So yeah, I agree. If it's going to be triggering, like if you can skip those parts, the rest of the movie's beautiful, but I don't know.
If you can skip those parts.
If you can skip.
Like if you know, if we could put the timestamps in the comments or in the description so you can skip. But
just don't watch that part of the movie.
The end.
Just don't finish it. Literally just watch the first bit on Brokeback, and then when they leave, that's it. That's the end of the movie.
You know what? I don't recommend this movie at all now.
Fuck it.
No.
Fuck it.
Actually, just no one see it.
Yeah, never just
Stop watching.
Yeah.
Crash it to 1.
I did like, though, I mean, to get a bit more in depth now on Brokeback, I guess we'll just do the movie separately because we spent a lot of time talking about it, so fuck it. We'll do Call Me By Your Name when you get there. But,
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do
it just did more natural.
Don't want to break the momentum.
Exactly. To get more in depth about that, I did like it because that little piece of foreshadowing doesn't feel like foreshadowing when you're watching the movie. It just feels like a little character moment, and then when it actually comes back at the end, it is like so heart-wrenching. And I love the reveal of him being dead, though. Like just that moment when he goes to get the mail and the camera just comes over him and it's just deceased, and I was like, holy shit, are you kidding me right now? Like, yeah, it's fucked up.
I think the one issue I had, like, are we just gonna discuss the end?
Yeah, get into it.
I think the one issue I had with that, with like the ending, finding out he's passed away and everything, is just Ennis's kind of lack of distress, I guess.
In the moment when he gets the mail.
Yeah, like he sees deceased, even when he goes and sees like his parents and stuff. I don't know. It just felt like I needed a little more like gut-wrenching emotion from him, especially because when they had to leave Brokeback, he was like throwing up in an alleyway. He was so sad. So I was like, I expected to find out his lover's dead. You would also have that level of emotion. You know?
That's fair.
Like he was just so distraught in that scene leaving Brokeback that he's like crying and screaming and throwing up in an alley. I just expected more finding out he was dead. You know.
See, This dovetails nicely into a problem that I have with the ending, because I'm, I guess, the resident I bitch about endings on this podcast guy. I'm always like, oh, if you cut this scene, then the ending would be way better. But anyway, I think the reason they don't have him freak out is so, like, you can build up to that moment of him finding the shirts, and, like, that's supposed to be the big emotional moment, which is fine, like, as a structure choice. But I have a problem with the fact that, like, he finds the shirts at the parents' house, and then we get one more scene at his house with his daughter, and then he looks at the shirts again, and then the movie ends. And, like, I get it, because, like, those scenes are doing two different things, like, thematically, but I was kind of like, I felt like to get that bigger emotional moment, it probably would have hit a bit harder if, like, the scene at the parents' house when he finds the shirt is, like, the big gut-wrenching moment, and then when he leaves the parents' house, the movie just ends. Like, I don't know if we needed that, like, very last scene with his daughter. It totally works. It's not, like, bad by any means, but it does feel a little bit like we're just getting that emotional beat again, whereas if we just had it the one time, I think it would have felt a bit more tear-jerky.
Well, even just the scene with his daughter could have come a little bit earlier.
Sure. Like, to resolve the daughter thing. Like, that could have happened, I think, earlier, too. And
honestly, I don't even know if I needed him to have a daughter. Like,
same. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I do agree with that. I get it. I kind of, like, because I think the scene with his daughter, I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, I think for me it's supposed to be about, like, him having learned how, like, precious life and love is type thing. And so in that moment, he's like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, if you're in love, yeah, I will come to the wedding and whatever, and it doesn't matter. Like, fuck everything else. Which is a nice sentiment, like, that. But I also feel like I think it's pretty clear that his opinions on that would have changed post what happened with Jack. I don't know if we needed the scene with his daughter to be like, and actually,
I don't know.
He learned the lesson, believe it or not. Like, I don't know. That's my only sort of minor gripe with that whole ending, that it feels a little bit too long for me. But
the daughter scene could have come earlier. I agree with that. One argument I'll make for the 2 shirt scenes instead of just having the one.
The 2 shirts.
I can't believe this is a sentence.
Yeah.
I think the first one was more the actual natural reaction you would have to the death of this person. And the second one at the end was the beginning of acceptance. That's why it was split, I think, because it was 2.
That's
instead
fair.
of just having all of that happen in one continuous moment.
Yeah.
I think it needed that break there.
Yeah,
That is fair.
But I agree with, like, the second to last scene being the daughter scene. I didn't remember it being that way, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
It is just a bit of a weird, oh yeah, he has a kid, and, like, we're just
And it's Kate Mara.
And it's Kate Mara, yeah.
Yeah.
Which was also shocking. Fucking David Harbour's in this movie too.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
Hopper,
And
go help
Anna
the kid.
Faris.
Anna Faris.
Anna Faris,
Yeah.
yeah. So many people in this bad boy.
The one detail I did like about the shirts is that when Ennis finds the shirt, his shirt is inside of Jack's.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they've switched it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was.
I thought
did
that was like
that
a
too.
very sweet kind of little touch that they put in there.
Yeah, it's a,
Also,
it's a
what is
fun
it with these
detail.
movies and shirts?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I said the same
Specifically
thing.
button-up shirts.
I said the same
Also.
thing when we were watching. Like, we'll obviously talk about Call Me by Your Name later, but I was like, this
I didn't
is
even
like
think about
that
that.
scene where he's like, I want that shirt after.
Yeah.
Yeah, after it's used as a cum cloth. He's like, this is the one I need to keep.
But he
Yeah.
washed
Queer
it
people
for
be
him.
loving button-up shirts.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
It's just the sensual act of unbuttoning, I guess.
Speaking of sensual acts, there's only like for a movie again
Yeah.
that is constantly hailed as like the gay cowboy movie. I think there's only like one sex scene between the two of them and Brokeback. The rest of the movie is all just implied, right? Like they kiss and stuff, but
Yeah.
there's no, it's not
Yeah.
like explicit in any way, which works again because I think you're focusing then more on just like the connection and
Yeah.
like the love as opposed to look at this shock value of 2 gay men having sex, quote unquote. But like, yeah, I did think that was interesting and pretty tastefully done.
Well, especially since it came out in 2005. I'm
That's
sure
true.
that also probably played a role.
Yeah.
Because as we said, when it came out, every man was making fun of it because God forbid you watch gay people. It makes you gay immediately. It must. And that's
Evidently,
inherently
yeah.
wrong. So
Well, when the 2 main characters are both so attractive, I mean,
Yeah.
who knows?
How can you help it?
Oh, okay. 2 main characters. Just fucking both Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal are phenomenal in this movie. Like
Yeah.
performance-wise, they're so good. Like every time I see Heath Ledger in anything, I just get so sad because I'm like, he was so talented, and like, I mean, it's sad that he died for like, you know, regular human reasons, but me as a just consumer of his art, I'm like, god damn it, like I would have loved to seen him in so much stuff. And I think I've talked about this before, but like the first thing I had ever seen him in was The Dark Knight, obviously, because I didn't really watch anything else. And everyone was like, what a performance! And
you
obviously,
didn't watch anything else ever? You just
never.
Batman?
I was born, and then at the age
That
of
was your first movie.
yeah,
2008.
12, I watched The Dark Knight.
It was his first word as well.
My first word.
I am vengeance.
Yeah. I remember though, like, obviously the Joker performance is just a good Joker performance, but people were like talking about like, wow, like unrecognizable Heath Ledger, and I was like, okay, sure. And then watching this and being like, oh, holy crap. Like, yeah, actually these two performances are so different and like completely unrecognizable from each other. Like, what just an incredible actor.
Have you ever seen 10 Things I Hate About You?
I have, but like recently.
Yeah.
Not like as a kid. I didn't watch it as a kid. He's great in that too. I mean, what do you want me to say?
Yeah, I liked their dynamic too. Like, while we're just on the actors, I felt like it was kind of like Golden Retriever, Black Cat pairing, you know? Like, I felt like Jack's very Golden Retriever. He was always the one that was a little more like open and like loving and whatever, and then Ennis was kind of harder to crack and a little more serious and like harder to open up. So I do like that dynamic of that added a lot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, like
too.
the one thing about that dynamic, and like I know it is because of how Ennis was raised, obviously, but it did make it kind of weird to watch any of their first romantic interactions because Ennis was fighting so much internalized homophobia. It almost seemed like violent in a way to watch because it was so intense, and like you could see him having that inner battle as it was happening. That it's always a little jarring just to like even see their like first kiss or even like their sex scene. It starts pretty like
it does
oof.
Yeah, well, they had a sex
literal punches are thrown too at some point.
Yeah, I was shocked that they had like a sex scene before any other romantic moments, you know? Like they hadn't even kissed, right? Before.
No, he just spits on his dick.
And I get that whole like just like the urge and like they just like satisfy the urge right away, but yeah, it wasn't as much of a like slow burn as like something like, you know, like Bridgerton and stuff where it's like, when are they going to kiss? It was just like, oh, okay, it happened. Yeah. So now then I feel like you get the sexual tension out of the way so that the rest of the movie is just focusing on their romantic like emotional connection. Otherwise you'd kind of be waiting for that one big moment kind of thing. So
and to that, especially like we're talking about with the 2005 audience, to get that out of the way so it's not hanging over the head of the movie about like, oh my god, are we gonna get a gay sex scene? And to be like, that's literally the first thing that happens. Now can we please just tell a fucking story and not worry about this bullshit anymore?
Yeah, I also like that because like you get the like most literal romance out of the way at the very beginning, and the rest of the movie is just the unfolding of the aftermath of like the inception of this relationship and how it falls apart by the end. So it really just becomes a character study after that after the first sex scene. Like that's all the movie becomes after that. I love how you have like the whole first act is on Brokeback Mountain, and then starting in Act 2 it's like a where are they now throughout the years, seeing what each of them is up to after that those few weeks. And throughout the years after, and then they come back together momentarily and come back together fully at the end until Jack dies. Yeah, I love it. Also, Jack Twist, best last name I've ever heard.
I was gonna say, I hate the name Jack Twist. It sounds like
How
a
can you
movie
hate
name.
it?
It sounds like a movie name.
That's not a bad thing, though.
But like,
we are
just
watching
like,
a movie.
This is true. It just like took me out of it a little bit. I was like, Jack Twist, really?
No, it did. Yeah,
I will say it sounds like a name that
it was
belongs
Jack
in a
Twist.
nursery rhyme.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Jack Twist jumped over the candlestick and then fucked
All the king's horses and all the king's horses.
Couldn't put Jack Twist together again. Ooh, that's sad with how this movie ended.
Yeah.
But,
Wow.
we should not have gone
I
there.
didn't mean it
Yeah,
like
I know
that.
you didn't. I didn't either. I just, once it happened, it was too late.
God.
But I love Ennis Delmar, though. That's a very, like, real feeling name.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So do you think the characters were gay? Because there's an argument on the internet.
Okay, I love that question. I'm so glad you asked that because...
Wait, what?
Oh yeah,
I
I was
is this a
asking
joke?
that too.
No,
it's
this
not
is a
a
very
joke.
real-
The internet actually argues whether or not they're gay.
Yeah, because I think there is a reading of the movie to be had that it was more like the extreme circumstances that they were in that it drove them to be. I know. I do think they're gay.
I could see that with the mountain sequence, but then all
Yes.
the
Yeah.
years after when they keep coming back to each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Doesn't that
Yeah.
kind of disprove that?
That's
I would say between the two of them, I would say like Jack would lean more towards men. And you could see
Yeah.
that with like him going to Mexico
Yeah.
and
Oh,
then
yeah.
him finding the other lover with the other rancher. That's like implied that
Mm-hmm.
they're
Yeah.
having a relationship. But I feel like with Ennis, it's less him being gay and more just like Jack was this person.
Yeah.
Because he never
So he's
found
probably
any
pan.
other man. Yeah, he never really
Yeah,
found any
sure.
other man attractive in the same way, right?
Exactly.
Like, we
Yeah.
don't think from what we know, he never hooked up with another dude, and he had a wife. But I don't even think like his relationship with his wife was all that. It wasn't the same like intensity as it was with Jack, obviously.
Yeah.
He's just not much of a romantic compared to
Yeah.
Jack, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like he also had more trauma driven in. I mean, we don't know a whole lot about like Jack's upbringing, but like with Ennis being like brought to see that dead man and be like, this is what will happen if you're gay. It was Ennis, right? Who saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Ennis.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah.
So then, yeah, I don't know if it's like just the fact of like being more gay or less gay than the other. I think maybe Ennis just had a lot more resistance inside. So like,
Sure.
I don't know.
That's what I think.
Or
too.
they could be, I mean, they could be bi because they were genuinely interested in other women. Like, I don't think there's really an answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the strength of why I think this movie is going to age well, is because I think the movie is more focused on love is love.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
don't
no
even
label.
worry about the label of it. Like, these two people had a connection, and that's the most important thing. Which is, yeah, great. I'm glad. Like, it's fun to have the conversation, obviously, but I'm glad there was no point in the movie where they were like, "So, are you gay?
Yeah.
Like, what are you exactly?" Like,
Yeah, like the only time they ever really talked about it was at the beginning, right after
Yeah.
they had sex for the first time. And I think it's Innes who says first, he's like, I ain't no queer. And Jack goes,
Yeah.
me neither. This was a one-time thing. Nobody else has to know about it. So
Yeah, and I read that as just like because it was the 60s, neither of them wanted to even like
Admit it.
even if it was true.
yeah.
yeah.
I love the moment when I don't know what you call him, their boss. He like comes down to deliver a message.
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid and Jack and Ennis are just like frolicking and like playing. And I was like,
Shirtless, wrestling.
it's like, aren't you guys
Yeah.
supposed to be fucking working? Like, forget the relationship, the gay aspect of this. Like, you're literally here
Who's
to
watching
be doing
the
work.
sheep?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Also, this is the most important question that we had.
Yeah.
What the hell is their job? Like, why are they taking the sheep up to this place? What
But
is
then
happening?
they can bring them back down.
Because they're selling it, right? They're selling it to
Are they?
some person.
I don't know.
That's why people herd cattle usually.
'Cause
is to,
I don't know.
bring it
They
to
were
another
in the
ranch.
same area. It's not like they were traveling with the cattle.
Do they
right?
travel?
No, they were. They
Oh,
were.
they were?
Oh, okay.
That reminds me too. The first, like when Marco and I watched this that first time, he randomly pointed out, he's like, I should mention there's like a startling amount of establishing shots of sheep in this movie.
Yeah, there really is.
It's absolutely
It
true.
is true.
Okay.
And every time I saw one, I laughed.
I have
and thought
two
about
things
that.
to say about the sheep. One, I think
Okay.
they move them around because they eat all the grass in an area because there's
Okay.
just so many of them and they eat so much. So then you just have to
Gotcha.
literally move them to get more grass. And second of all, they probably had so many establishing shots because apparently it was a nightmare to get all the sheep there because it was filmed in Alberta. And the environmental department prohibited the crew from bringing domestic sheep into the Rockies because they didn't want to bring new diseases to the wildlife. So they had to really keep them separate and not allow them to interact with anyone and like drive them in and out of the mountains like every single day. So they were probably like, we're doing so much work
Getting
just
our
to have
money's
any
worth.
sheep.
Get
We're gonna
those
record
sheep
the
in
fuck
there.
out of them. Yeah.
I need another sheep shot, and I need it now.
Make it worth our time and effort.
I would like to see like the shooting schedule, just how many pages of the schedule are devoted to sheep establishing shots.
Yes.
Sheep B-roll.
Just like 3 days just shooting sheep.
Yeah,
I
probably.
love that.
Yeah, I took it as usually when people are herding cattle across country, it's to deliver it to from one ranch to another.
Okay.
But so I think that's pretty much what their job was, to just look after it and make sure the predators didn't get at it.
That makes sense.
Stuff. I like that parallel when there's the shot of one of the sheep that got like eaten by a wolf or whatever. Very symbolic for pretty obvious reasons, but I like it a lot.
Well, what did you think it was symbolic of? Because I have like a different sort of thought. Maybe.
Oh, I definitely thought like the sheep was. It's pretty much like the flashback we get of the gay couple getting like beaten to death, and again parallels to the end of the movie as well.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because to me, because it happened right after they had sex for the first time,
Yeah.
and Ennis says something about before they even like have that, they're talking, and Ennis says something like, "I haven't had time to sin yet," which makes me believe that he was a virgin.
Yeah. No, I
And
think
so then
the
when I saw,
internet
like-
says that.
So then when I saw the dead sheep, I was like, oh, that's like loss of innocence. But
Yeah.
yours also makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
I didn't catch that. Yeah, I guess it could be
Interesting.
both then.
I never caught the virgin thing either. That's interesting.
Was he waiting till marriage?
I
Because he
think
had that
so.
his partner,
Yeah,
the woman.
yeah, I guess.
I mean,
Because he was
back
getting
then,
married.
maybe he was waiting for marriage.
Yeah, it was the 60s.
Wait, sorry. Which character said they were a virgin?
Ennis.
Was he at that time with someone though?
Yeah, because he was like, I'm getting married to Alma when I get back.
Yeah.
Getting married to
Just
Al.
like that.
I thought. Okay.
My name's
I thought he said
Well-
his brother was getting married.
No,
and
his
that's
brother
why
was
he was being moved.
no,
off the
his
farm.
brother was already married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why Ennis was where he was, because he was like left adrift, which is like a big recurring theme, obviously, in Ennis's life, is that he keeps
Yeah.
being left by the people closest to him. But yeah, I did read the short story that the film's based off of,
Oh, you did?
and in the story there's a line that's like, he had never done anything like this before, but he did it, like, and it was not, he knew how to do it even though he'd never done this before. And so it was
That's-
either like, I don't know if it was he'd never had gay sex before, or if like he'd had sex in general. But when
Yeah.
I read that line, I was like, oh, that might prove my theory a little bit. I don't know.
That's what I had
interesting.
mentioned when that scene came on. I was like, first of all, it makes total sense that Ennis was the top and Jack was the bottom.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
Absolutely,
it
yeah.
just
That
like,
is
their
that is
personalities,
so.
it made
I know
so
it
much
makes so
sense.
much sense. Yeah.
But I was like, but how did Ennis just like Ennis jumped in like it was second nature? And I
Yeah.
said that to you, and I was like, has he had homosexual relationships in the past or what? Because it was like he just knew, but I guess with him saying he's a virgin, then I don't know what like the deeper meaning. I guess that they were just so right for each other that it just was so easy. I
I
don't
guess I don't know.
Also, I am gonna say this, just if we're gonna talk about sex a little bit here. All he did was spit on his dick.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's
There
not
was no
cool.
warming up. There was no
There's no
foreplay.
like little foreplay to
No.
get the rosebud ready. None of that.
No.
Just
Poor
straight
Jack.
in.
Just absolute pain.
Yeah, that was. It looked like it would have been very painful. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Like obviously Jack, I think at that point had.
I think
Experiences
we
with men
should
before?
Yeah.
probably assume that Jack had experiences,
So
but
it
still,
makes-
I mean,
yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's still, but I mean,
But also,
I think
I
the more
will
you
say,
do it-
like, they're in the middle of the woods. They aren't doing the appropriate cleaning
that's
or
what
douching.
I said.
yeah, we were talking about
That's
that.
exactly what I said. I was like, they definitely don't have a douche, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
they don't have condoms either. So
Yeah.
like, it's just gonna be, and then they just go to bed after. I'm like, and they're bathing in a river. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
was
know.
just thinking
Okay.
about
It's
As
the.
gross.
dark and sad as this is, because when the summer was over and they split up, and then Ennis went to cry
Yeah.
and scream, and I remembered someone died
In
in
the
the
alley.
end. My mind filled in that, oh no, like Ennis gets AIDS and dies.
I had the exact
too.
same
Which
thought,
is like
Carol.
obviously
Me
so
too.
sad that any like gay love story set in the 80s,
Yeah.
I expect someone to get AIDS and die, but it kind of was the reality for millions of gay men at the time. So, but
this is the
I'm glad
this
it
is-
wasn't that.
This is the 60s.
So this was-
technically.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
But it ends in the 80s.
It does end in the 80s.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I guess that's
yeah,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
I knew I read the year 80s somewhere.
Well, and also
Yeah,
the
you're
next
right.
movie
It's like
takes
over
place in
20
the 80s,
years.
so.
Oh, that's where I read
That's what
it.
you're thinking
Okay.
of too. But there is a
Never
scene in
mind.
Call Me by Your Name where I also thought maybe Timothy Chalamet had AIDS, but I mean we'll get there when we get
The
there.
nose, please.
There was just lots of scenes where he just seemed very in pain, and I was like, okay.
Is that a symptom? Is nosebleed?
I don't know if that's a symptom for me.
It's not.
but
I was just thinking blood. That was the only connection.
just
I
blood.
should probably know more about that.
I want to talk about a little bit, going back to Jack's death, since we're just talking about sort of random questions we had about stuff. Anne Hathaway, his wife in the movie.
Yeah.
What is her relationship to Jack's death, do we think?
was
Because she
suspicious.
seems suspiciously
Oh,
cold
that's a
about
good
it.
question.
And I don't know if it's like her dad found out that he was gay
Yeah.
and killed Jack what are our thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a good theory.
I think her
actually.
dad's
I didn't
dead
think about
though by that point, isn't he?
Oh shit,
Yeah,
is he?
they're old.
Or maybe that was in the short story and it wasn't set in the movie.
I think the last
Because I don't remember this. I don't remember
the last
that.
scene
Okay,
with the
maybe
dad.
not. Maybe it was in the short story.
It might be because the last scene with the dad in the movie is when he like
tells him off.
tells him to go fuck himself.
freaks out,
at
yeah.
Right.
Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. But I don't think there's anything with the parents after that, and so the movie doesn't really say. I don't think one way or another.
Okay.
I feel like the way I interpreted her suspiciousness was that I think she might have found out about them before he passed away, and now so she's kind of like sad but a little bitter. You know, if I've heard of people that have like lost a partner and then they find out that they were cheating while they were alive, and it's kind of like you have these weird emotions of like you're like mourning but also angry. So I feel like it might have been a factor. Like she might have I doubt that her dad would have killed him. Like I feel like that's really like that's really intense, you know.
Marco's like,
I don't know.
headcanon, this is what's going on.
Here's what makes me think it though is like her dad was such a shithole to him the whole movie that
Yeah.
I wouldn't be.
But it was because
Totally
he was
surprised.
poor and uneducated, not because he was gay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
also the dad
But I
would
mean,
be
a perfect
so
reason
probably-
to be mean to someone.
I definitely didn't have that idea prior to hearing it from you, Marco.
Yeah.
But now it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. Before hearing that, my theory was just that at some point that we didn't see, they broke up, like really recently, and that's why she didn't seem too shaken up about hearing about her husband's death. I thought about like if she had any involvement in it, but before bringing her dad into the theory, I didn't really see how that would have connected at all. But I don't know. I think I might have to agree with that.
Yeah,
now.
the main suspicious thing, other than how she was acting so cold, was that she like lied about how he died. You know, like
That's true, too.
she said that he was like changing a tire, it exploded, something hit him. So, and that's obviously not true. So, like, why would she be hiding that? Either like she wouldn't know Ennis is gay, so she wouldn't be trying to like protect him and not tell him the truth of what happened. So clearly, her family is suspicious in some way.
Well,
you know?
I think to me,
Yeah.
I felt like the death was kind of ambiguous. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
to me, so when Anne Hathaway says the story of like, this is what happened, and then when they had the scene cut to Jack getting assaulted,
Yeah.
I thought that was like Ennis's
Headcanon.
thought of like,
Oh.
I thought that was Ennis being like, oh, this is probably what actually happened. Like he's basing
Because
it off
of
of the
his
story that he
child.
heard.
Oh.
And then at the end, when he,
Ooh.
and then, then I started to think like, oh, that maybe is what happened when he's at his, when Ennis is at Jack's parents' house, and they were like, oh, he's gonna bring another man here, instead of you, and then we find out about the other relationship, and then
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that might have been what happened.
Yeah, that's really
But
interesting.
to go back to the Anne Hathaway phone call, I read an interview that she did when the movie was coming out, or after it came out, about if her character knew, and she said that she did one take where her character knew about Jack and knew that he was in love with men, and then did another take where she had no idea,
I'm reading that right now.
Nice.
and that the when they were editing it, they like spliced it together.
That's
so she
cool.
doesn't
Just to
doesn't
fuck
know
with
for
us even
sure,
more.
and she's
That's
like
really
the
cool.
only one who knows is the director for sure, who like what the actual story is.
I found it interesting because she said she didn't even want to know. She's like, I'll play
Yeah.
it both ways, but honestly, it doesn't matter to me either way what the reality is. Which
Yeah.
I find really interesting.
You know what's so cool about that is the movie I think we're talking about next week, if I remember our schedule correctly, for the podcast, has that exact same thing happen in it. There's
Oh,
an
really?
actor in that movie that played his scenes 2 or 3 different ways, 2 and 3 different interpretations, and they edited it all together using takes from each. So you're never really sure what that character is going on about. Which we'll talk about next week when we get to that movie.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what next week's episode is.
We'll talk about it later, I guess.
Don't say
I
it
won't
now.
say it now. We'll
Yeah,
talk about it
that's
later.
okay. Either way, I'll just add to this. Whatever the case may be with this phone call scene, I like that it's like immediately on the heels of the scene where Ennis is like the amount of stuff I know about you, I could like have you killed with what with what we've done and what I know about you, and like the fact that it actually comes to fruition, it's very heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
However it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any final Brokeback Mountain things we'd like to get out before we move on to Call Me By Your Name?
I didn't mention it yet, but I mean, it's been mentioned, but I didn't say anything about it yet. But like, I just love the look of this movie. I mean, I talked about like the location specifically, but even just not just the location, how it was shot.
Yeah.
And yeah, the performances. Again, we've talked about. I can't believe how many. I guess cameos, but they weren't even cameos because most of these people weren't anybody at the time.
Yeah, it's cool.
Excuse me,
fun.
Anna Faris was somebody.
Okay,
She
well,
was.
David Harbour
was
Kate
nobody.
Mara
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Oh,
fair.
and
We should probably talk
Yeah.
about David Harbour.
Well, Anne Hathaway was in
Even-
the Princess Diaries, so
Yeah, she was
very
my
famous.
icon.
Apparently,
Even,
she auditioned for this film while she was shooting Princess Diaries 2, and she was like,
No way.
came into the audition in a ball gown and like the hair all done up.
Oh,
Yeah, she came
That's
during her
hilarious.
lunch break.
Yeah.
oh wow.
Wow.
But even like, I don't think Jake Gyllenhaal was the Jake Gyllenhaal he is now.
No.
No, definitely
even
not.
close.
Definitely not.
But he was
Yeah.
friends
Okay.
with Heath Ledger, and is the godfather to Heath Ledger's son?
Yeah.
With
yeah,
Michelle
daughter
Williams.
with Michelle Williams. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
Oh, I didn't know that. So Michelle Williams and Heath Ledger were actually a couple?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they met and fell in love on the set.
Wow.
And it's interesting because in the scene where Michelle sees them when they first meet up again, post Brokeback Mountain, and they have to, like, she catches them making out, she apparently told them to make out harder so that it was really believable for her and she could give an authentic reaction.
That's funny.
So she's like, hey, boyfriend,
Apparently,
make out with
too-
this man more.
Apparently, too, during that scene, Heath Ledger almost broke Jake Gyllenhaal's nose because he was like kissing himself.
Oh my god.
So intense.
My final Brokeback Mountain thought is just, it has one of my favorite line readings of all time is when Jake Gyllenhaal is freaking out at the end. It's their last scene together, and he's like, oh, like, we could have had such a good life, we could have had this, we could have had that, and all we have now is Brokeback Mountain! And I don't know why, but just that line reading makes me laugh so hard. Like, just the fucking anger, and just the fact that it's the title of the movie as well, it's just such a funny line reading.
Also,
It's a
how
classic, like they said the title.
Yeah.
have we not talked
Moment.
about the like meme that came out of this? I don't know how to quit you.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how
Yeah,
to quit you.
the classic. I don't know how to quit you.
I don't know how to quit you.
Well, we almost got Matt Damon and Joaquin Phoenix delivering these lines.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, because apparently Gus Van Sant was attempting to make the film because people had the rights to the short story for quite a few years before it was actually made, and it was passed around to a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
So he wanted to make the film, and he wanted to cast Matt Damon and Joaquin Phoenix, but Matt Damon was like, I just made a gay movie, and I also just made a cowboy movie, so I can't now do a gay cowboy movie. It's just too much.
What movie was that?
The gay movie was The Talented Mr. Ripley, and the cowboy movie was All the Pretty Horses. I haven't heard of that one.
I haven't either.
But yeah, so we said he couldn't do it.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we got this movie instead, because
Yeah.
I don't know how it would feel
Yeah.
about a Gus Van Sant, Matt
Well,
Damon
I'm glad it
Brokeback
ended up
Mountain, but-
with Ang Lee.
Yeah.
It was what brought him back to filmmaking, because he said he was exhausted after Hulk.
Yeah, I would be
And
exhausted
he
after
considered
Hulk too.
retirement right after Hulk.
Poor Ang Lee.
That's actually really funny.
He's so
He-
talented.
I mean, I'm sure he was extremely involved in the editing process
Holy
of that movie.
shit.
So.
All right,
Are we switching?
time to fuck some peaches.
All right.
I have so much to say.
Let's do this. Okay, first, general thoughts again. We'll start with
Oh, yeah.
Maddie and / Dan, whichever one of you wants to go first, because neither of you had seen this before, so go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Dan, you
Yeah,
can go
Maddie,
first. No,
take it
Dan,
away.
you go first.
No, you're the guest.
No, you go
You're the guest.
I insist.
Okay, I'm gonna go first, but I'm gonna edit it so that you.
You're so annoying. Yeah, so I hadn't seen it before this. And then I actually found it a little bit difficult to watch just because of the Army Hammer stuff.
Yep.
I think had I seen it before I knew about all of that, I probably would have liked it a lot more. Yeah, obviously the age gap was a thing. To be fair, the film takes place in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could kind of in my brain give that a little leeway because like of the times, still not great, obviously, but I could kind of
happens.
forgive that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
And also
forgive
the
that.
age of consent in Italy is like 16 or something. But that doesn't make it okay.
Oh, so,
By
so
any
it's
means.
like 21 Jump
I
Street.
was
where
just gonna say
like-
it's a real 21 Jump Street situation.
Where they just have to say, she's 18, she's 18.
She's 18, so it's cool. Don't worry.
Yeah, I did like it. Like, I thought it was a very touching. I thought it was like a great coming of age story and kind of finding your first real relationship where you love somebody and kind of dealing with
Yeah.
the emotions that goes with that. I would probably recommend it to people I would recommend it if you like want to feel like you're in Italy, because it looked great.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I gotta go
Italy
soon.
Simulator,
Have a
yeah.
little Aperol spritz.
Yeah.
Let's
yeah,
go.
I know.
Yeah, I think it's a great coming of age movie, so I would probably recommend it to people who really like those sort of films. Like a romance where, you know, it's not always a great ending. Same thing with like Brokeback Mountain. If you want something that feels a little tragic at the end, where you feel a little heartbroken, this is the film for you.
Yeah, so this is my first time seeing this movie.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because I love so much about this movie, and then every time I was invested in the story, I was like, oh yeah, this is a 17-year-old
Yeah.
Yep.
and a 24-year-old.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted it. Every time I forgot about that, I wanted it to happen so bad, and then it just kept creeping back up behind me, and I was like, God damn it. But like, everything else about this movie is beautiful. I love how it was shot.
Yeah.
It looks like an 80s movie, but in the best way. Like, not
Stranger Things.
not like
Yeah.
a dated. No, I mean, not even like that. Like, it doesn't look like it was shot on dated
Right.
technology, and it just looks like shit.
Right,
Like,
right.
the beautiful film grain and everything's hazy and vintage. I love it. I fell in love with the look of this film. I also like, this is a very specific thing, but I love how supportive Elio's parents
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Just right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even an issue.
Yeah.
It's not even like part of his arc.
But
or
should it have
anything.
been an issue because of the age gap?
Yes.
Well,
Oh, okay. Talking about that, yes.
Yes.
But like
They're,
just
like,
an
accomplices
issue
to
with him being
grooming.
gay.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
No, for real. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like, you know, Millie Bobby, the whole drama with Millie Bobby
Oh,
Brown and
and
how
Yeah,
she
her
was
parents
groomed
and
her
yeah,
parents
yeah.
supported it and like let him live with them, whatever. Like that was this
I
whole
didn't know that.
situation. Yeah, like
it's very weird.
Okay,
Anyways.
to clarify,
Yeah.
I meant supportive about his
Yes,
sexuality,
yes.
Oh,
not
yes,
about
yes.
the
Well,
prison
yes,
great.
situation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll leave. I don't want to say too much more right now, but Armie Hammer's a weirdo, but his performance was really good.
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet,
Oh, yeah.
as usual, very good. Most of the rest of the cast was mostly unknowns, probably just local casting. I would
It
assume.
was, if I remember correctly, from the credits and stuff, I think most of this movie was made with like an Italian crew, like
Yeah.
in Italy
Italian
and
unit.
stuff. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of the side cast, with the exception of like Michael Stuhlbarg, who is just the boy Elio's dad. But yeah,
What else is he in?
He's-
I've seen him in
so
things for
he's
sure,
in
but I
Steve
don't know.
Jobs. He plays the guy in Steve Jobs that always gets shit on, and then he's in a lot of stuff. But he's also Dan in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. He gets the credit.
Oh, he's that
the
guy?
guy that gets the fucking title credit for no reason.
He was in it for like 5
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah, that's him.
Oh,
He's-
I knew I heard that name
He's
before.
such
recently.
a good actor. Like, I love him. But yeah.
Anyway, I'll put it there for now.
Wait, recommends?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
recommend.
yeah. So this one's harder because grooming.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Just a little
okay,
bit.
first off, I'll say the same thing as Brokeback Mountain, as like it's not a kids movie. There's actually much more explicit things in this
Yes.
movie than even Brokeback Mountain. Oh, this is like, I'm actually questioning if I liked the movie because of the whole age difference. Like, there's so much I did like about the movie, but what is my overall final opinion on like what's going on here?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that'll develop as we discuss. So I'll just say no going in that there's a very inappropriate age gap in the relationship you're going to be seeing, but the general romance vibe is extremely well done. And just about everything else about this movie is extremely well done. So it's definitely worth watching. So I will still recommend. Like, I'm glad I watched the
Yeah.
movie.
Medicine?
Oh, I have so much to say. I don't even know how to. So to piggyback off what Maddie said. So the first few times I watched this movie, it was before all the Armie Hammer stuff came out. So I had like this deep love and connection to this movie, and then it like felt like it got a little tainted after the Armie Hammer stuff. And now, obviously, like watching it afterwards, it's like you can't help but think of that stuff. And the grooming, of course. Like, again, I watched it with very innocent eyes. Like, I didn't know the storyline. Like, was it a novel before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a novel.
Okay, because I didn't know anything, so I really thought they were the same age. And then it clued in when I started realizing he was a grad student. Like, I didn't really think too hard about the ages. And I think knowing that, like, Armie Hammer's in his 30s and Timothy Chalamet's in his late 20s, like, I had an easier time digesting the relationship, just knowing them as, like, the real actors. But obviously, the more I learned about the true ages, what they were supposed to be, I was like, okay.
I think in
very
real life they have a
problematic.
10-year age gap.
Yeah, I think Timmy's like 26. And because I looked it up just to make sure, and Armie's 35. So it's like, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, very obviously consenting adults and whatever. But everything about this movie, other than the grooming and the Armie Hammer stuff, is just like one of my all-time favorite films. Like, Suv John Stevens is just a artistic genius, and his music like rips my heart out. So having his music with this movie just like made so much sense. Like Dan said, the aesthetics of just like the most beautiful cinematography of Italy, like it makes you want to go and be there and immerse yourself like that. And like all the beautiful blue lakes and oceans that they're swimming in, and it's just so much about it I love. So it does kind of suck that it was tainted by freaking Armie. I also don't personally agree. Yeah, what do you say?
By cannibalism.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I don't personally think that Armie Hammer, and I've said this to Marco, is like the best casting for Oliver. Like, aside from the cannibal stuff, I just feel like
Cannibalism aside.
Yeah, there's just
I thought you were gonna say, I don't personally think Armie Hammer's a cannibal.
Oh no, I
No,
believe
he
it.
is.
I
Like,
believe
you
I
had
saw
the
text.
inside knowledge.
Yeah, I saw the text. I believe it.
Allegedly, he is definitely
Yeah.
a cannibal. Yeah.
Allegedly, definitely. But yeah, I just personally, like, I'm partial because I'm obsessed with Timothy Chalamet. I've seen every one of his films. I'm obsessed with him as an actor. And I think that he has the Call Me By Your Name look and personality. And for some reason, Armie Hammer, once he speaks, it just takes me out of it. I'm
Would
not kidding.
Shia
Like,
LaBeouf be better for you? Because
No,
that was almost
no.
an alternate
oh
reality.
God, no!
No.
You need someone
I
else.
actually, sorry, I'm gonna piggyback off of Madison real quick. I actually thought the same thing, but I
Yeah.
thought he was too old. I was like, this
Oh,
guy doesn't
okay.
look 24.
He doesn't come
Yeah.
across like a grad
Yeah,
student.
because he has such a low voice.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
He's-
he seemed much older
Yeah.
than what he was, which I think also made it a little bit more uncomfortable because like Timothy Chalamet forever looks like a Victorian child. So
yeah, that
putting
is a
them
good
together,
point,
you're
yeah.
like, oh.
Exactly.
Starving
That's what I was
Victorian
saying
child.
to
Yeah.
Marco. Is like Armie Hammer's like this buff, blonde, typical like American, like chiseled god-looking figure, and then you've got this scrawny, ill-looking, beautiful boy. Like, I think he's gorgeous, but that's besides the point.
Also,
I don't know.
name
I
of
just
another
feel
movie he was in.
yes, yeah. Oh yeah, I did that intentionally. That
Good joke.
movie's amazing. So you
It
guys
is
should
really
actually
good,
do that in a future episode.
Wait,
I
what
would-
movie?
Beautiful boy.
It's
with
him and Steve
It's just
Carell.
called Beautiful
yeah,
Boy?
it's got Steve Carell. It's about addiction. It's like
It's based
so
on a true
amazing.
story. It's also heart wrenching.
Yeah. But I could ramble forever about this movie. So I'll stop. Recommendations. I would recommend it. Honestly, yeah, like to anyone who's in the mood, like, you know, when you just want a good cry and like you don't have it in you. You just need to like either listen to a song or watch something to prompt it. Definitely watch this. The ending scene that leads into the credits is just like you feel like you're there, feeling all that emotion. And I would just say again, because there's such sexual scenes, like very vulgar sexual scenes, I would say just nobody watch it with other people. especially like family or siblings, like,
Or
maybe just
grandparents.
watch it alone. Yeah.
That's a good call. This would be weird to watch with parents. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. The peach scene is like nothing. The eating of the peach.
Yeah, the eating of the peach is really what gets me every time.
Yeah. Anyways.
If Brokeback
Okay.
Mountain would give old people a heart attack, like,
Yeah, this would.
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
Eviscerate.
If you are a homophobic old man or woman, don't watch
Don't watch this. All right, I'll jump in. The first time I saw this was with you. We watched it together the first time
Yeah.
on streaming somewhere when it came to streaming. Really enjoyed it, and then again have seen it more recently. I'll piggyback off what you said about the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is
incredible.
really beautiful. The original songs and stuff for it are awesome, and I listen to them. Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the plot and the themes and stuff, and I totally agree with everything you guys are saying. I think it's a beautiful story if you forget about the grooming. But I also don't, and I guess we can get into it in more in depth in a little bit, like, I don't know if the movie is necessarily, like having, okay, we've talked about this before, but, like, having grooming in a movie in and of itself does not make the movie bad. It's more like, what's the movie's stance on that happening? And so, I don't know, like, I think the movie, it could have leaned harder into, like, oh, that was kind of fucked up, and it didn't, which is why I think it feels weird, which I guess we can get into some of the details of that in a bit, but I do struggle with that a little bit, but so I just pretend it doesn't exist, and I just pretend they're the same age and enjoy the movie. But the thing I really want to talk about, the thing that's, like, so close to my heart with this movie and why I love it so much is, as you guys have said, like, the aesthetic and the way it captures Italy. And this is, like, such a random specific thing, but like, as someone that has spent decent amount of time there, and is from that culture, I do struggle a lot of the time with the stereotypes of the way, like, Italy is shot or presented in film, because it's always like
The fountain.
It's always like, we're going to Italy, and then hard cut, and like, then there's just like red tablecloths, and it's
You
like,
mean
it's all
not like that?
It's not, believe it or not. Even the fucking Godfather starts at the Italian wedding. Some old man is singing that song, and I'm like, this is a child song in Italy. Like, Italian people don't just listen to this one fucking song. But anyway, like, but yeah, the way it's captured, right? Like, I think there is a tendency, especially in parts of the world that are like hot, like physically hot, there's always this weird like orange aesthetic that people try to capture with it, this desert like everything is hot aesthetic, and like Breaking Bad, like fucking everything is like that. And so yeah, to see Italy in this,
all the blues and like cooler
like
tones.
as an actual like place, yeah, like the greens and
it actually
the
reminded me
blues.
more of Greece in this movie.
Which is what it's like, but just not presented that way most of the time. But yeah, and like the specificity of Italy, of even when they're having breakfast outside and like what's on the breakfast table, like if you like paying attention to that, like on my second watch I was like, this has all been on tables that I've eaten at there. This is like exactly
they don't have pizza for
But
breakfast
you all know
there?
how to crack an egg, right?
yeah that I know. But yeah, like and like the bike riding, and when they go into the town and all of that, like it feels so real to me. And I have said before, like, if you ever want to go to Italy but just can't go to Italy, just watch this movie, and it does pretty much the best job of taking you there without actually going there I've ever seen. And like that's very heartwarming to me, and I enjoy sitting through the movie just for that experience. And then even like to go to the end of the movie, like the fact that they again show Italy as a real place with like seasons, and so like it's cold and there's snow, and like they're wearing like not summer clothes, and I was like, yeah, can you believe that? Like Italy has seasons. Like it's
like there's snow in
yes, especially northern
Italy.
Italy.
That I'm embarrassed to admit.
Okay. Did you say your recommends?
I would recommend this to anyone that wants to go to Italy. Also, if you, as you guys have said, if you're in the mood for like a love story, this is a good love story. Yeah, I think like again, as we're talking about, just be aware of the content in it. Like at the end of the day, if you're younger and maybe not ready to handle very sexually explicit content, like don't watch it. And then also, if you know that gay love is gonna offend you, then just don't bother watching it. Like I don't know why you'd put yourself through that. So yeah, other than that though, you know, I think again, like there are elements of this movie that have like elements of grooming in it. So if that is a trigger for you, you might want to stay away from it. But it's also not really tackled ever head on, so you can kind of just pretend they're different ages. But you know, I'll leave that up to your discretion.
Yeah, on that note, I did watch this at the golden time right when it came out. For some reason, I just remember there being so much hype around this movie.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
it like in the Oscars awards circuit. And so I am blessed to have like a little local one-screen theater that at the time I was living down the street from that plays all of the Oscar baity type things. So I got to watch this movie there with my best friend and roommate Caroline, who was on the podcast before in the 420 episode. And we kind of didn't know what we were getting into, just that like movie based on a novel that Caroline had read and I hadn't at the time. I since have. But yeah, so we went into it and were absolutely emotionally wrecked, fully sobbing in the middle of the theater. We had to like sit for 10 minutes afterwards to recover, and obviously it was really nice to watch it without all the Armie Hammer drama because that hadn't come out yet. And at the time I also went into it really ignorantly, and even though the age discrepancy, it looks like it is bigger than it is even in the story canonically, but in my head I honestly didn't question it, and I did assume that he was at least 18, so the grooming part didn't really offend me until I then like did a Google and then later read the book. But when I was watching it, thankfully that didn't taint my experience at the time, so I was also like Madison, obsessed with it. I had seen it like very many times afterwards if I ever just needed a good cry, because it's good and gorgeous and really pulls on the heartstrings. But yeah, and looking back kind of similarly now, it is kind of like weird to be like, this is a not okay relationship. But I do understand, I guess because I'm last, I can kind of also bridge us into an actual conversation now.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll do recommends too, but I do kind of understand why they did make him 17 and younger, because the story focuses so much on like discovering your sexuality in general, and like the similar to the dead sheep, a loss of innocence, and just like truly it's all hormones, like I said at the time, and obviously that doesn't make grooming okay, but I do understand why the author of the original novel decided to make the protagonist so young. But it is obviously weird in hindsight. So with that, I do recommend it to people who want a good love story and can ignore things like grooming and a cannibal starring in a film. But if you can't ignore that, don't watch it, because it is kind of distracting.
So I want to piggyback off that, since we're talking about the grooming stuff. Like, my takeaway, because it always, like to what you're saying, it has to be intentional, because not only is the age discrepancy like that in the book, but then also to cast, as we said, the youngest looking actor and a really old looking actor. Like, they're trying to drive that home. And I think, like, Maddie made a point about this movie very much playing like a coming of age story, and so I think if you view it through that lens, and what we've talked about, the idea that, like, I mean, unfortunately for a lot of people, like, coming of age sexually can end up happening via a more sexually experienced older person, and especially I think this having to do with Elio like figuring out his sexuality and not necessarily like being comfortable to take that step alone, like to have a more sexually experienced man who has probably been with other men, although we don't know 100%, but assumptions can be made there. I think that's why that exists, is not to be like it is grooming, but also like sometimes like that is how people figure out their sexuality, which is like an unfortunate dichotomy that exists in the real world. I do think, again, maybe had someone said that like towards the end of the movie, it wouldn't feel so weird. But I think that's sort of something that they put out there, and it's more like not good or bad, but hey, this is how it happens sometimes. I
think the issue is in the book, it's never addressed, and if anything, because I don't know if anyone else here has read the book.
No.
I also read it a while ago, and we know how my brain works, so there's not much left up here, but I do remember that they never like explicitly say like this is the age gap and it's bad that it's this big. It's never really pointed out in the novel to be an issue at all, and the novel even goes further and they reconnect like a decade later and like continue a more platonic relationship because he is married to a woman at the time, and the whole thing. But yeah, so it is kind of a relationship that is still regarded like fondly and upkept for a long time in the novel. So
that's what I was gonna say is kind of resolved it for me, was that they don't end up together. It's not like this fairy tale like glamorizing, but they obviously don't like make any commentary on how grooming is wrong, but they also don't let them end up together, and it kind of shows like how Oliver was clearly more mature and in a later stage of his life to be getting married than Elio. But I do like they could have made him 18. Like, I just don't understand the
Yeah.
1 year, like, why he had to
yeah.
be 17.
Yeah.
Like, I just, like, even if it was, 18 and 20, still not great, but I can understand a summer fling, you know, you're, I don't know, with an older person, but 17, like, just make him an adult, and that would have been okay, especially even, because they don't have to, like, do exactly what the book did.
Yeah.
I don't know why with modern times they didn't just, for the sake of, but again, they never mention the ages explicitly, so maybe in the movie Elio's 18. We don't know, like, right? Like, it doesn't,
I guess
they
that's
never
true. Did they
address
ever
it.
say he's 17?
No,
I think they
not
do.
in the
No.
movie.
Did they?
I think because I feel like before we talked about this post me watching the movie, I had it in my head that he was 17. Or maybe it was that I read the IMDb synopsis and they just took that from
The
the book
book?
and put that in the movie synopsis.
Could be.
Maybe
Could
in the
be
movie they actually don't mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like, I'm Googling it, and it does, like, in the synopsis, it'll say Elio's 17, Oliver's 24, but they never, as far as I know, they never addressed it in the movie. Like, they never, because what context would they ever say their ages, you know?
As you
So-
know, I'm 17 and you're
Yeah.
24.
But there is also, like, Elio is on summer holiday, which
Yeah.
means he's at least, he's no older than high school, right?
Well,
Well,
university, we had summer.
holiday, yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess.
don't do
Yeah,
summer
I guess
school.
And
that's
with
possible.
with Oliver, like, being like a grad student, like, he's working with Elio's dad, but you can do research earlier in undergrad. So that's why I kind of was like, I was thinking, oh, maybe this is like a summer research project for
was
Oliver
thinking
and
that too. That
Elio's
was
in
me, like,
university on.
grasping
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
straws. I was like, please, anything to make this.
Yeah, well, because I
Yeah.
didn't know the ages, but like I said, we watched this very long ago before
Yeah.
all the kind of uproar came out and about. And so I was literally thinking they were like two university students. One was
Sure.
on summer break, or like even high school and second year university. Like, he's doing a research elective in the summer with Elio's dad.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really think that deep about it, and because I know like how old Timothée Chalamet is, like, I never, like, I didn't have that predisposed, like, oh, he looks like a baby, he's so young, and Armie Hammer's so much older than him. I just thought I knew they were around the same age, so I think that's why it was easier for me to digest
Yeah,
when I was watching it.
And I don't even have that much of a it's not so much a problem with Elio being attracted to Oliver. Like, that's
Yes.
it's normal for
Yeah.
kids to be to find
Yeah.
adults attractive, but it's the reverse is the real problem.
Well,
Yeah.
well, he should know better than
Exactly.
Yes,
what he
exactly,
desires
exactly.
Yeah.
as an adult. Yeah.
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 I will say that I think this movie might have been different had it come out later.
Yeah.
Because like the Me Too movement, which I think kind of spread a little bit more widespread awareness of what grooming could be.
Yeah.
That didn't happen until 2018, and this movie came out in
17.
Did this movie come out in
17.
2017? Yeah. So I think that would have been I think they might have had to address it. Maybe not had to, but there might have been a little bit more pressure. And I think when it first came out, people might have been a little bit more aware.
I think too, they're like, not to keep talking about the grooming because there are
That's all
much
this
better
discussion's gonna be
aspects of the
about.
movie.
This is how most of our conversations
Yeah.
go. We pick one thing, talk about it.
I never
and
thought
then
I would
we
say
just-
that.
movie's
I never
over.
thought I would
Yeah.
say that sentence. Not to talk even more about the grooming.
Yeah.
But I think what's tricky with this movie is that it's grooming between a man and a man.
Yes.
And I think that like Lolita, right?
Yeah.
There's like the older man preying on the younger woman.
Sure.
It's Lolita, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's the Stanley Kubrick
Yeah, it
one,
is.
right?
Yeah, okay. And then
It's
obviously
also
in like
a novel, Marco.
yeah.
Yeah, but you know how much I hate Stanley Kubrick, so anytime something based on one of his fucking movies comes out, of
Yeah.
course he would make that movie. What
Yeah.
a creep. Anyway.
Yeah, and
Continue.
then like obviously in like a lot of mainstream media, there's a lot of commentary about older men preying on younger women.
Yeah.
So I think this is like even more troublesome because it's like the first time I've really seen or heard of anything of like older men with younger men. You know? I don't know.
Sure,
Maybe I've like been sheltered, but I feel like it's finally time for a story like that to kind of come out because it's like it is a little bit like Elio was in a very like vulnerable position, not only like questioning his sexuality, but which gives Oliver a little bit of power, but also he's so much younger. So there's like a lot of issues going on there, but
Power dynamic issues.
yeah, major power dynamic. So I think that's just something I
Yeah.
wanted to mention is like it was I haven't seen another movie because even Brokeback Mountain, obviously they're same ages, like that's not a a problem in the movie, but I haven't seen a movie other than this with like that issue of grooming between two men.
And maybe that's like part of it is the idea that, hey, we're at a point now where we can tell a love story between two men and it doesn't have to be idealized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's also weird shit that happens between gay men. There's weird shit that happens between any
every
relationship. Like, it's not going to be perfect just because they're gay. Like, that's not, you know, we can now get a little bit deeper than that in our storytelling. It's not 2005 anymore, so.
I like that too. It's just, like we mentioned before, we're not really sure if that's actually what
the stance of the movie. Yeah, that's the
know,
problem. That's the problem. We're adding all this context to it, but yeah.
Because we still want to enjoy it.
I do.
I know.
I did enjoy
That's the
this
thing.
movie, but like,
Yeah.
it was hard to at times because that kept coming back.
It was a little hard to ignore, yeah.
Yeah, you really do have to bring your own, like, this is how I'm viewing the stance
Yeah.
of the movie, and I think it works that way. And if you don't, then yeah, it's a little tough. But I mean, yeah, let's talk about the million other good things in the movie. We don't have to just fixate on this, but yeah, performance-wise, again, great performances across the board. Fucking Timothée Chalamet's cry at the end of the movie, just the prolonged cry, I was like, holy crap. Like, what just a wonderful little piece of acting that he does there.
He's really good. I think he's one of the best young actors. Like,
I agree.
There's no way he's not going to win an Oscar sometime soon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I feel like the grouping of basically all of the people that take part in Greta Gerwig's films.
Yeah.
Like Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, and Timothée Chalamet. Like, these three are like my idols of like, honestly, like they're on the same level as like Meryl Streep. Yeah. Like of the older generation. And so I'm excited to see what they do because again, you'll see Beautiful Boy, hopefully. I really recommend it. Like, it's just, he's so incredible. And yeah, that scene at the end, like, that was so, and it's so prolonged that you're
I know, it's so uncomfortable, but it's so good,
but you need that, because it's like, yeah, it's showing kind of like that first love heartbreak.
Yeah.
He's currently filming a new film with Luca Guadagnino.
Really?
Right now, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I heard about this. It's about cannibalism, right?
No way.
Okay,
No way. Are
I'm
you
pretty sure it is.
Are they
Yeah,
bringing the back?
I'm serious.
Army Emerson.
Was it all method acting for this
I'm
one
serious.
Like, maybe.
Well, it's so interesting because right after
Let me
this movie
double check.
came out and everyone loved it, they were like, we're making another one. It's the author of the original
What?
novel is going to write another novel,
Like a
which
sequel?
he did, and it came out in 2019. Yes.
Oh, that
so the
sucks.
author wrote a second novel. Came out in 2019. Everyone on board was like, I'm really excited to make the second movie. It's gonna happen. And obviously now I think people are less excited for that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Don't do sequels to indie movies. That's
I
so
agree.
lame.
Yeah, the next film called Bones and All. It's about cannibalism.
Well, Sebastian Stan was incredible in
Fresh.
Fresh.
So I'm ready for a cannibal.
Yeah, I think we're ready for more cannibal films.
I
I mean,
am.
I think it's
Maybe we were
fine.
too hard
Okay.
on the cannibals, guys.
But the best part about Fresh, though, was it did end with a woman's revenge.
Yes.
That was
And
very good.
I don't know
Yes.
if Bones and All will go in that same direction. That's
Yeah.
what made Fresh so palatable to me.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
the
Palatable?
whole...
Digestible.
Digestible, you might say.
I was doing it.
Okay,
was-
that's my cue. I'm getting out of here.
The woman's revenge, and then also that little
Wait.
dance that they do.
Speaking of digestion, the peach eating scene.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, the peach eating scene.
Okay, but he didn't explicitly eat it in the movie. He just
He
like,
was
put
going
it to his
to,
mouth.
like,
I mean,
he was
he-
Because
he was
in the
about to.
book, he does explicitly take a bite.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. Like, dominance. No, like, honestly, like, I don't know, like, what
I think it's
that-
pretty clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. No, I know what it was. But, like, what was the meaning behind it? And then he starts crying afterwards. I think it was, like, a weird power moment. Like, it made me... That scene, aside from eating a peach filled with semen, it made me uncomfortable because it was, like... He's, like, taunting him, and then Elio starts breaking down crying, and it's, like... It's just, yeah, it highlights the power influence a little bit.
I will say what I interpreted it as, and I think, I don't know, I've seen this on the internet. I don't know if it was also the author and director agreeing with it or if I've extrapolated. But the reason he breaks down crying is because the fact that Armie Hammer was willing to eat a peach filled with his semen.
He's so honored.
It was like the ultimate form of acceptance. It's like, you
Okay.
accept me right after I've masturbated into a peach. How beautiful is that?
Right.
And then he thinks that
Beautiful's
he's
a
going to miss
word.
him when he leaves.
That's how I
Yeah.
read it. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
you kind of have to read this movie now in the two like
The two different ways.
yeah through like
The
two
innocent
lenses
eyes and
of like
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
is if he is 17 and it's a grooming situation, and the other is if it isn't.
Yes.
And like while I was watching, I was wavering between the two, but I think at this point I was probably watching through the lens of like I'd forgotten about that for a second. It was just like
Sure.
the romance between these two people. So I was like, yeah, I kind of read it like, don't do this because it's gonna hurt even more knowing that you're leaving soon. Like the more we come together, the more it's gonna hurt when it's finally
Come
time
together?
To,
Sorry.
The more they're gonna come together.
but yeah, so that's how I kind of looked at it.
That makes sense.
Pride Month.
That is
But-
superior. Yeah, exactly.
But one theme I like appreciate that someone touched on earlier, that is the like acceptance in the movie.
Yeah.
Not only from like his parents, which is just such a, like, if you have daddy issues, like that scene with Elio's dad just talking to him and holding him, like
the
that
best
will
part.
hurt. Yes.
Yeah, it's so good.
But like even just Marcia, like
Yeah.
like she was in a relationship with someone she thought that he, like, they were in a relationship, and then she's just completely accepting of it didn't work out and he's in love with someone else who's a man, and she just doesn't even, it's not even like a thing, you know. She's
Yeah.
just kind of like she sees him in the car crying, and they have that moment, and it's like everyone around him accepts him, and it's just, so he's allowed to be like, I don't know, who he wants to be, and doesn't feel like he has to suppress anything, which is obviously very different from Brokeback. It's a lot of like suppression and like internalized struggle and stuff. So that was refreshing to see that it just wasn't even a thing that people were like,
Yeah.
you're gay? Like, it was just a thing that he was in love more so.
Yeah.
Like his dad,
Yeah.
that whole speech was more just about being in love more so than being gay.
Yeah.
If this took place in the
Yeah.
U.S. during the 80s, it would
It'd
be
be a
very
whole
different.
different thing.
Well, Brokeback ended in the 80s, like early 80s.
Right, with-
Which,
Yeah.
like, around the same time that this film took
Takes place.
Coincidence?
Yeah.
So,
Is it a sequel? Is this in the Brokeback cinematic
They-
universe?
Reincarnation?
I will say also, just on the theme of
Reincarnation.
acceptance,
No, for you.
it is nice that Oliver, even just at the beginning, helps Elio accept his Judaism. Like,
Yeah.
even as simply as that. And,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
That is also nice when you think about it. 'cause
Absolutely.
That doesn't involve grooming at all. That part
Yeah, that's
is
a theme.
completely innocent.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally innocent. No problem there.
Yeah.
I have a question about, we've talked about this, but
Yeah.
the speech that the dad gives at the end, Michael Stuhlbarg, which is,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful moment. Obviously, he's talking about love, but like, there is a line that he says about having only had love like this, like, once in his life, or whatever.
No, he says something like,
What's the exact line? I forget what the exact line is.
He
It's
he says he came close to something like this once before or something.
Yes. Is he
Yeah.
talking, like, what is he talking about there, do we think? Do we think
I
he's
think
talking
he
about...
experimented with men
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
some point.
That's
That's
how I read
my
it too.
head
Yeah.
canon.
Me too. Me
yeah,
too.
mine too.
Okay, cool. I'm glad we're all on the same page about that. I didn't know if I was adding something there or if that's actually what that was supposed to be, but okay, cool.
Yeah.
yeah, something, while on the topic of the speech, like, I don't know if I'm just dumb or not, but I feel like I had a hard time interpreting what his dad was saying a lot of the time. Like, even just the quote of, like, but to say nothing so as to not say anything, what's the point? Or something like that. It's like, you're just saying, you should speak up, but in, like, fancy terms.
Yeah, but
So
it's Italy,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah. I
very,
think
like,
that was
fruity and,
also-
like...
Because of, like, the German story they were reading, too, about the, like,
Oh.
the speaking, if you, like,
The
the
folktale
love
thing.
thing. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm talking
The
about.
Folk tales and
princess?
shit.
Like the princess story?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Also, his dad is, like, a professor or something,
Yeah.
so I
he's
guess it
an
makes sense that...
intellectual.
Yeah, he's an
Yeah.
intellectual, so he would speak with lots of intellectual quotes, because that's how all intellectuals speak.
I will say, as much as I loved the dad and his acceptance, that
Mm-hmm.
whole, like, exchange, like, right after Oliver arrived, when they were talking about the origin of some word, like, apricot, and it was, like, a whole
Okay,
like,
listen.
secret ploy. I was like, this is pretentious.
It is
This
very
noisy.
pretentious.
Yeah.
Yes.
But as someone who is half Arabic, when they were going through and he was like, and then this is the word for it, I was like, no, it's not, fuck you. And then when he corrected him and he's like, no, it's actually like Mish Mish or whatever, and then I was like, oh, nice. Like, it is very pretentious and stupid, like, the scene that he's, like, trying to trick him. But, like...
Well, actually,
But when they got the detail wrong, I was like, fuck you. Like, you're representing one of my cultures well, but you got this other detail wrong. And then it was like, no, it's actually a twist. And I was like, okay, that's a dumb twist, but I'm glad you corrected yourself. So. But, yeah, that's I did find that scene a little bit silly as well.
I agree.
Just to go back on, like, the speech. So I looked it up, and he says... His dad says, I'll say one more thing. I'll clear the air. I may have come close, but I never have what you two have. Something always held me back or stood in the way. How you live your life is your business, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. Like, it's like...
he's definitely experimented. He must have.
But it makes me a little sad because the way I read it is like, he doesn't love fully satisfied with his wife.
Yeah. That's life.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that is possible. I thought about that too.
Because he says, I'll never have what you two have.
Yeah.
Which in my mind is love. Yeah.
Yeah. It is really sad. Maybe that's why he's an intellectual, you know? It's how he fills the soul in his, the hole in his soul.
Fills the void.
Yeah, the void.
Now, there's that one scene that I've seen people talk about online, but I don't know if it's real, where after the first night that Elio and Oliver have... You'll know what I mean.
Okay.
After Elio and Oliver have sex...
Seems real.
Yeah.
Well, after Elio and Oliver have sex the first time, and they go down for breakfast in the morning, and people are saying that Elio is like struggling to sit down, and his mom like does like a little smirk. Is that a thing, or
I didn't catch that at all? Yeah.
Like when you watch it, you'll notice like because he just took it in the bum for the first time, and he's like kind of sitting slow, and he like sits down in his chair like very awkwardly, and then his mom kind of is like, you'll notice she's kind of looking at him and like smiles and kind of shakes her head. And I don't know if people are over analyzing that scene, but I've seen people talk about it and be like, oh my god, she knows.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I did not notice that. I think people might be reading into that too much.
Probably especially because in that last speech scene that we talked about, they say like, I don't think your mom knows at that point. Obviously later in the movie she does.
Yeah, I was going to say, it is really interesting that they say, I don't think your mother knows, because she's the one who brings up the idea that Elio should go with Oliver to Rome.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
they don't
that confused me too.
In the book, they go to Rome. In the movie, they go to some other town.
Some other place.
Maybe she does know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe the dad's stupid.
Or maybe
he doesn't know the
Well, because maybe the dad is also like, she can't even tell that I'm gay, so she must not know that you're gay.
Maybe. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, because I was under the assumption that at that point she didn't know, I just assumed that she suggested they go together because from her point of view, they had over the past 6 weeks just formed a really strong friendship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a lot more than that, but
obviously.
But yeah, that the dad speech scene is like one of my favorite scenes in this entire movie. Like content of the speech, but also delivery of the speech. Like he's such a good actor. Every line of that speech is just so naturally delivered.
The whole movie is very naturalistic, and I think maybe that is why Armie Hammer stands out so much, is because he is very like an actor that we kind of like. Not that we don't know Timothée Chalamet or Michael Stuhlbarg, but I don't know. Like Armie Hammer seems like one of those actors that doesn't really disappear into a role. He just kind of like acts the role, whereas everyone else felt very like, oh yeah, I live in this Italy place. But also like he is technically also from out of town, so maybe that's like. It's fine. He's like, he doesn't live there, so...
He's the outsider.
They did highlight his Americanism and his later.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to talk about is just, I like how, like, I don't know if like, intimate is the word, but how intimate all the character interactions are throughout the movie. Even, like, when Elio's just laying across his parents' lap while they read to him, and him and, like, Marzia's scenes are very, like, touchy, like, romantic, and it shows like intimacy in a non like
sexual,
uncomfortable way. Like he's laying on his parents' lap as an adult, well 17,
let's be clear,
but it looks so like pure, and I don't know, I just really like all that.
That is also very sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's like a platonic warmth throughout this whole thing. Even in in the relationships that aren't him and Armie Hammer,
which I think is like a great juxtaposition between the relationship he has with Armie Hammer, which
Yeah.
is obviously very erotic and sexualized.
Yeah.
Very, very. Yeah, and it is also very, I think, like, European more than it is, like, they are more free in that way of, like, yeah, you would just, like, lay on your parents' lap or whatever. Like, nobody, like, cares. But I think, yeah, obviously the more, like, especially in the States and stuff, as we talked about, like, if you lay on your parents' lap, they probably just shoot you for being gay or whatever. So I don't...
No, it's
Your
just, like,
parents
a
would
lot of-
shoot you.
Yeah. I mean, probably.
Oh my gosh.
Before we head out, we should do final thoughts and, like, fun facts and stuff. I do have one, which is that to get Armie Hammer and Timothy comfortable with each other,
Oh, yeah.
and you guys probably all know this from research
Yeah.
or having heard it, but basically the director was like, they were, I think, getting a shot ready, but they weren't ready for the shot, and so...
Wasn't it just the chemistry read?
Oh, maybe it was the chemistry read. I don't know. But basically he said, like, okay, and now we have to practice you guys kissing, so I want you guys to, like, start kissing. And then, like, they did or whatever. And then, like...
No, he was like, you need to be, like, rolling around in the grass. Like,
Yeah.
you want it to be, like, very intense.
Yeah,
and
and then
then-
he just left. So it was just Armie Hammer and Timothy Chalamet there just, like, making out with, like, no one around. But it was just meant to, like, get them comfortable with each other so they could do it in the
Oh,
scene
really?
or whatever. But
Yeah.
I thought that was, like, a fun little fact. Nice little bit of direction there.
I will say I have a really disturbing fun fact.
Oh, good. Okay.
Is that
Ooh, let's
both
Is it a
the
fun fact,
director... No. Both the
just-
director and Timothy, when they read about the peach scene, they're like, we don't even know if it's possible. So they both
No.
tried it and both confirmed that it works before they filmed it. That's why I
That
said
seems-
it's not fun. It's pretty gross. And why would they say that?
Yeah.
I would never admit that to
No.
anyone.
No.
I would take that to the grave. And also, the one thing
They
I
just didn't want other people doubting it, though.
Yeah, they
They're
were
like,
like-
no, we actually
Yeah.
did it.
We
It
actually
worked.
fucked
I
the
guess.
peach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
fine.
fine.
I do
think about
respect
it.
them
It
for
makes
that.
sense that it would work. So I don't know
'Cause
why
I'd
they had
hide
to
it.
prove it.
I mean, it
But,
had to be a really
They had
ripe
to-
peach, though. Like, you can't do it
Yes.
on, like, a very
Yeah.
Yes.
crunchy one.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it can't be too ripe, though, either, because
No.
it falls apart.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gotta
it's
be
got to be
just
the
right.
perfect sweet spot.
The right
Yeah.
peach.
Yeah, but one thing, it's my final remark, I guess, I don't have any fun facts, but just the one thing I kept thinking about with the peach scene, and I mentioned to you, again, with, like, just thinking about the logistics of things, like, how sticky was he
I know, it was...
afterwards? Like,
he just
I'm-
went
Even
to
when he was
bed
just, like,
after.
even when he was just, like,
Squeezing
like, the
it.
juice was just falling
Yeah.
on him, that made me so
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
I
Like,
know,
all
it's
of
and
a
he's just
sudden.
like wiping it. Like I was just thinking, like, you
Yeah.
are so like literally head to toe now. You are sticky, and I hate that
Yeah.
thought. But
He just pulls his pants back up and goes to sleep. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, how?
Yeah.
Like, how are you not just, like, disgusted with yourself
Yeah.
right now? Anyway, yeah.
They do it different in Europe.
I guess, evidently.
Yeah, one thing I'll say to wrap this up, I guess, is with Timothy Chalamet, I feel like I always have this predetermined thought that he's, like, a really overrated actor, and every single thing I've seen him in, he's been fantastic. So I need to stop
Yeah.
thinking that.
Just accept that he's talented.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, anyone else have anything to say about either of these movies, really, before we wrap it up?
You know, at the end of Pride Month, I'm happy that we got to talk about some gay boys.
Gay boys.
Next up, gay women. At some point.
At some point, yeah.
Hey, at the very least, it'll be my next selection for our selection series, so we'll
Okay.
get there.
What's
I
the
promise. Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, is it going to be that one? That's a
Yeah.
good one.
All right.
That's a beaubeautiful movie.
It's so good, and no grooming involved. We love
Oh,
to
good.
see it.
Lovely. Yeah, you love to see it.
But yeah, so just happy Pride, I think, is what I would want to leave it with.
Yeah, I'll try and
Yeah, I
edit this
agree.
in time to get it out before the end of the month.
Well, that's that's fine. They get the
That
point.
would be
We talked about
classic
it during
us.
Pride Month.
Yeah.
Happy Pride Month.
Happy
When have
Pride.
we
Pride.
ever been on time for
The
anything?
gays.
I've never been on Pride. Shout out to the gays.
No, that TikTok audio. That's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Happy Pride Month. Shout out to the gays.
Thanks again for listening to the feature-length podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to us if you liked this video or audio. Give us a rating and review if the platform you're listening to us on allows that. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes of the podcast, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the bell to be notified when we post a new video, or follow the podcast on Spotify. If you want to connect with us directly, you can follow us on Instagram at featurelengthpodcast, or even send us an email at featurelengthpodcast@gmail.com. Catch you on the flip side. If you had to replace the actor of one MCU villain with Jerry Seinfeld, who would it be?
What the hell?
Thor.
Oh, but villain. It has to be villain.
Yeah, villain.
Although I would love to see Jerry Seinfeld as Thor.
To be Thor. I think he would make a really good Thanos.
Okay,
That's
easy
Who
answer,
is-
but that's a good answer.
Who was
That's a
the
good
bad
answer.
guy of the second Avengers movie?
Ultron?
Yeah,
Yeah,
who I want.
that's a great
Oh my
answer.
I want to see him as Hela.
Hella? I will pick...
You better not pick my answer, Marco.
Ooh, this is tough. Red Skull.
Okay. Oh, that's a good one. That's kind of ironic, but
Ooh, actually, can I change my answer
Sure.
sure.
to Winter Soldier?
All right.
But he has to play him through all the rest of the movies
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, when he turns into a hero too.
Yeah. I think he really deserves a redemption arc like that.
That's fair. All right,
Okay, I
James.
would pick Obadiah Stane from Iron Man 1. Specifically
going
for the
to
scene
deep
when he
cut.
freaks out. Yeah, when he's like, Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave. And I just want to see Jerry perform that line alone.
As soon as you said Obadiah, I was like, oh yeah, it's that.
It's just
that
instantly
scene.
that scene.
Yeah, of course.